The truth hangs heavy upon the air itself, unspoken. This is the point of no return. Somewhere beyond this point, you shall be undone, or you shall ascend. There is no middle ground.
Come here often. I don't know what you did, but you just released a source flood. I thought I'd come and see what all the fuss was about. Should have known you were getting yourself into trouble. Looks like the big moment has finally arrived. I will do everything I can to support you, Godwoken. I will pray for you. I think you'll need it. Don't underestimate the power of true prayer. This is a place of incredible power where a single prayer holds the weight of thousands. Your heart and soul will fill as quickly as they're drained. Consider it a taste of your divine future. The people will pray for you. In turn, they'll trust you to do right by them, as I'm trusting you to do now. Of course, it's up to you whether or not to listen. I know how I'd respond, but you do you.
Malady wearily chuckles to herself, then bows her head in a show of unexpected but sincere reverence.
Looks like my investment's paid off after all.
I need worship only one divine, and I believe she stands before me now.
You've shown me kindness in the face of my sins. My worship is the least I can offer.
I've always preferred to be the one reaping the attention, but you've turned the tables. I suppose it's only right, seeing as how a new divinity may stand before me.
Now go. Rivellon needs a new divine.
Garbage.
God-woken. Dallas told me about you. You must be as hard as diamonds, and twice as bright, to have come so far. Your divine welcomes you.
The divine you thought dead lords over the chamber from a granite throne. He moves to speak, but it's Wiedemann's voice that next pierces the air.
What a twist.
Lucian frowns at Wiedemann, then bestows a benevolent smile upon you. All that you know of him flashes across the panorama of your mind.
I underestimated you, Godwoken. You have proven to be a formidable foe. You have my respect.
Respect? Indeed.
Lucian's gaze rests upon you and goes through you. He takes your measure entirely.
Lucian, we should tell the Godwoken the truth.
Yes, I agree. It is time we dropped our masks.
Dallas nods, then reaches for the sides of her head. Where there was one face, suddenly there are four. She takes off the mask of the shapeshifter. A skull is revealed, bejeweled and ancient as the void.
I am eternal.
Aren't they just full of surprises?
Fear not, Godwoken. Dallas is on the side of all that is good. She is helping me rid Rivellon of the influence of the Source. Listen to her.
I shall tell you the tale as I told it to Lucian. Long ago, the Scholar Fane discovered that the veil between the world and the void was made of Source. Our 7 lords desired this power.
Of course.
Silence, slave. Our king forbade the 7 to reach for this power, but they didn't listen. Instead, they rebelled and sent the king and his people into the void.
With the Source they stole from the Veil, the 7 created the races so they would have worshippers.
During their lives, worshippers collect souls. When they die, the gods feed from them. It's an ingenious system.
Our souls are nothing but vats for the Source-hungry gods.
The 7 made a mistake. By taking its source, they tore a hole in the veil, and it is through this hole that the void finds its way into our world.
The 7's lust for power let in the void. Our goal is to close the hole they created, to restore the Source to the veil. When we are done, there shall be no more Source in the world. Rivellon will be finally free from the gods that enslave them.
I seek vengeance against the king and against the 7.
There is more, but she hesitates to share it. Then she decides that she must.
I was a child when the God King tore my family apart. I was purged of Source and left to rot in a putrid tomb. A child. It was hell. A hell I suffered for the sins of my father. He was the one that betrayed the God King. He was the one that told the Seven the secrets of the Veil. The cruel joke of it all is that the same tomb that housed my tortured body is what sheltered me from the void. Few Eternals escaped that fate. Myself, my mother, and Thane. Yes. Thane is my father.
What? No. It can't be. Everything Dallas did. It was all you. Child.
Everything I did to fix your mistake. Our people, every purged sorcerer, every dead magister, all those weeping families, they're on your head, Father. But now I have revenge. Revenge on the Seven and the God King. Revenge for what they took from me. My life. My people. My mother!
The hammer's voice falters and her coolness vanishes. Every crack and rasp betrays her grief. But her next words burn not with sadness, but anger.
Did you even look for me? Did you even look for her?
Dallas, control yourself. Our purpose transcends your personal wounds.
Yes. You are right.
Dallas's reasons weren't mine to question. All that ever mattered to me was peace. Peace for Rivellon. Peace for me, whatever the means. And now, we are on the precipice.
She sacrificed herself for the betterment of Rivellon. She didn't do it willingly, mind you. Curiosity led her to the tomb. My hunger for Source took care of the rest. I presume her bones remained there. And then I took her place. Face rippers are such marvels, aren't they? It didn't take long to realize that Lucian was the key to my vengeance, and I was the key to the salvation of Rivellon.
While Dallas sought the Aetheran, I started draining the gods of their source.
Slurp, slurp, slurp.
One more word from you, and I shall use the leash.
I had to hide from the gods. So I had the walls of this crypt equipped with tenebrium and protections put in place. It worked. Everyone, even the gods, thought me dead. As divine, I was created, empowered to stop the void. I was the avatar of the Seven, their strength and their weakness. My bond to them allowed me to drain them of their source.
Yes, in a sense. When the Death Fog was unleashed, many elves died. With fewer elves to worship him, Teosendilius weakened. This gave the God King his first real foothold back in the world. To strengthen himself, he sent his Voidwoken, the remnants of my people, to hunt down the sorcerers seeking to reclaim their source.
The Voidwoken. Disgusting things. They ravaged the land they touched and infected the air they breathed. They were also an incredible stroke of luck. You see, blaming the sorcerers for Voidwoken made them easier to capture.
The Ateran now contains almost all of the source the Seven stole. Soon, we will be able to heal the Veil.
The Void shall be banished, and I, Lucian the Divine, shall return from the dead. A false divine, of course. I shall have no power. But the world will not know this. I shall demand peace, and we shall have it.
The plan is almost complete.
We have made so many sacrifices, Godwoken. All of us. Of ourselves and those we love. One last sacrifice is required. For the future of Rivellon, you must surrender your source.
Decide. Be the true hero and give up your source, or be forced to submit. Like a coward. Like a slave.
There is no other way. The source of the world is required to close the veil. All of the source. We only lack yours.
The God King's voice rises in warning.
No!
Good. You understand.
The world shall not know this. I shall return from the grave, a divine without power, yet all who desire power shall fear me. I shall carry the secret of my lack of divinity. Peace shall reign.
As I say, one last sacrifice is required. Yours. We already had more than enough Godwoken.
Another sacrifice I was forced to make. Those beautiful people. I was as kind as I could be. I promise you that.
Then let us proceed. Show some responsibility, Father! Surrender your source!
Sealing the veil will lock our people away forever. They will never be free of the void. Though if they return, what becomes of this world?
Fane turns to you. In all the time that you've traveled together, you've never seen him like this. He's trembling with emotion.
And you, my fellow adventurers. Together we have seen more than generations of mortals could ever see. You have seen the horrors of the void, and I have seen this world through your eyes. You showed me how beautiful it really was. There is no one else I would trust to make this choice. Whatever you decide, I will follow.
You'll be a hero. Everyone will know the sacrifice you'll make. Your name will be synonymous with the survival of Rivellon.
The voice of the God King howls to you from beyond the veil.
You surrender to no one. I am your god. I am your king. Betray me, and I shall shatter your soul. Deny me, and you shall freeze eternal in the bitter void.
You are sworn to me. Fulfill your oath. Kill them. Thank you for your loyalty, my child. You shall be rewarded. Now unleash my righteous fury. Seal the fate of these heretics. Kill the thieves!
The truth hangs heavy upon...
Come here often. Looks like don't underestimate. Of course, it's
Melody.
Looks like my...
I need worship.
You've shown me...
I've always...
Now go.
God woken. Dallas told your divine...
The divine you thought...
What a
Lucian...
I underestimate.
Respect?
Lucian's gay.
Lucian.
Yes.
Dallas not. A skull.
I am.
Aren't they?
Fear not, good.
I shall tell you the tale. Long ago,
Of course.
silence our king forbade.
With the source they stole from the veil, the Seven created
During their life,
our soul.
the Seven made a mistake.
The Sevens, when we are done, there shall be no more source in the world.
My people cannot be allowed to return from the void. They are tarnished. They are void-woken.
There is more, but she hesitates to share it. Then she decides that she must.
I was a child when the God King tore my... It was hell. The cruel Thane. Yes, Thane is...
What? Everything Dallas...
everything our people. But now I have...
The hammer's voice falters.
Did you even look for me?
Dallas, control yourself.
Yes.
Dallas's reasons weren't mine to question. All that ever...
She sacrificed. She didn't do it. And then I took her place. Face rippers are such marvels, aren't they? It didn't take long to realize that Lucian was...
While Dallas...
Slurps.
One more word.
I had to hide. As divine, I was created, empowered to stop the void. I was the avatar of the Seven, their strength and their weakness.
Maggot. I am no slave.
With a flick of her wrist, Dallas sends a jolt through Brachus's body. He writhes in pain.
Don't worry, he's well under control. He has made a fine servant. Isn't that right? Ingrate. I used him to find the Eteran. When we're done, I'll release him from his duty and free him from his pain. Until then...
Dallas punctuates her statement with another wrist flip. Brachus shudders, but his lips remain curled in a self-satisfied grimace.
The Eteran now contains almost all of the source the Seven stole. Soon, we will...
The void shall be banished, and I, Lucian the Divine, a false divine.
The plan is almost
We have made so many...
Decide.
There is no other way. We only...
The God King's voice
No!
Then let us proceed. Show some responsibility!
Sealing the veil will lock our people away forever. They will never be free of the void. Though if they return...
Fane turns to...
And you showed me how...
You'll be a hero.
The voice of the God King howls to you.
You surrender to no one. I am your god. I am your king.
You are sworn to me. Fulfill your oath. Kill them.
You swore! You swore! You took my favor, and now you refuse to repay it! Behold the fate of the Oathbreaker! Behold the fate of the heretic! Behold the fate of the thief!
What's left of the corpse on the floor bubbles once and then pools, cooling quietly on the stone. The point is made.
That is the fate of the world under the God King. We cannot allow it.
Oh, really?
Quiet, you! Now, Godwoken, You know what you must do. We must heal the Veil. We must banish the Void forever. We must give up your source.
Godwoken, surrender your source. Surrender your soul.
hurts, doesn't it?
Dallis looks to you.
The future of all that is depends on you, and you alone.
You think back on your journey here, on all that you have seen and done. You think of the Magisters, and the sorcerers they hunted, and of the good and the evil on both sides. You think of how the Eternals came as Voidwoken to reclaim their stolen world. You look at the source around you. The power is immense. Divinity at your fingertips. You think of what you could do with such power. The rights you'd wrong, the wars you'd win. You marvel at your journey and how it has changed you. You think of those you left behind, and of those you met along the way, who stood by you or against you. It's time to choose your fate, and the fate of all you hold dear. What shall it? Shall you be divine? A cloud of purest black breaks through. The chill of death, then its very visage, the pale skull at the heart of the void. This is the God King himself.
Not one! There is not one who will choose divinity. What fools! They have power within their grasps, but they fail to take it. These races truly are inferior. Victory is mine! My people! The world is ours once more. The reign of thieves is at an end. These so-called races will be our slaves and our food stock. For we are the truth. We are the real. We are eternal!
So it ended. A tale that began with my own ill-fated attempt to rid the world of the Godwoken. The Eternals returned to the world. In the eyes of the God King, Fane was redeemed. He returned to his studies. Dwarves, elves, lizards, and humans all became slaves, ruled over by the Sworn and the Eternals. The God King had defeated the Seven and returned from the void. Relics of the old world remained, but in time they crumbled and fell, like the memories of the peoples who had built them, lost to time like sand in the wind, but not lost to Fane. Fane would never forget. As for me, I was freed of one covenant only to be enslaved once more. But I am fortunate. I serve Master Fane now. My task? To chronicle the rise and fall of the Godwoken. This was their story. Master, I hope you approve.
Don't you dare look me in the eyes, slave. For that is all you are now that you bow to the God King.
Malady stands tall and proud, sunlight sparkling off her mask. From here she looks almost angelic.
Well, here we are again. You, me, and the ship I've saved from ruin for your personal benefit. I'd say you owe me, but why state the obvious? Get an eyeful. I expect it's the last we'll see of each other for some time. It isn't going to be easy cleaning up this mess you've made. It might not even be possible. I don't know how I could have been so wrong about you. I'm never wrong. The same way I do everything, of course. Demonic guile. Good thing I didn't do it just for you. What a waste that would have been. How boring. No thank you. You'll see, you little so-and-so. This isn't over. Until we meet again, all the best to you. Don't you have somewhere else to be?
Beast's spirit does not acknowledge you as you approach. He only sings.
You e'er hear the wild beast just sails on the ocean. He's docked in the bay, coming your way. Often beyond you hear the commotion. He's docked in the bay, and coming your way. Your cupboard can't hide you, nor can your berth. Daggers don't care about the gold that you're worth. They'll bury your bones neath a mountain of earth. He's docked in the bay and coming your way.
He pauses, then continues to hum, all the while working his ghostly whiskers.
You've done. You've signed my death warrant, fool. The God King won't stand to the likes of me in this world. Not after I abandoned his cause.
I am nobody's tool. You never really knew me at all, did you? No. This world is one of your making, and it'll be yours to suffer in. I have prospects in other realms.
Gareth bows as you near, but seems either unable or unwilling to speak.
The Eternals.
Gareth is still. For a moment his mind wanders to memories of friends and enemies, of Malady and Magisters, of demons and divinity. He is then present once more, though he speaks without a trace of emotion.
I eagerly await what comes.
Sibyl twirls her ghostly needle. Her face is set in a defiant scowl. Losus spits at your feet and stares at you with a curled lip.
After all I had to do to free myself of the God King, you just gave in to him? You've ruined everything. I want you to know that. Now get out of my sight.
I await but your word, Master.
She is full of surprises. My wood was splintered, but my spirit intact. It was a great feat. But a shame I must be given life anew to know the pain ahead, the pain that will endure. As I was called to be, I am yours to command. My will is of no consequence, even as we sail into darkness. And so, as I must, I say, I am at the ready.
There's nothing interesting down. The future, there's nothing interesting down. The future lies above, not below.
Is the time at...
You look out to the endless beyond. The sun's light plays upon the waves, but you know it is not to last. The sails flutter in the wind, yet you know they are soon to still. And with a start, you realize where you must go next. You speak the command to the Lady Vengeance, and another chapter begins. And what of you? What of you, feign the eternal indeed? You were the key to it all. You brought the Eternals back to the world and saw the God King enslave the thieves. You set right the original wrong. And the seven were punished for their transgression. Are you proud of all you achieved? Or are you ashamed of your sins?
That is the fate of the world under the God King. We cannot allow it.
Oh, really?
Quiet, you! We must heal—
Godwoken, surrender your source. Surrender your soul.
Lucky find.
Dallis looks to you.
The future of all that is depends on you, and you alone.
You think back on your journey here. On all you think of them, you think of how you look, you think, you marvel. It's time, shall you? After all that you have been through, and all that you have done, all that you have become, the Aeteran lies in front of you. Divinity is yours to take, or to sacrifice. What you do next decides your own fate and the future of the world. What shall you do with divinity?
So it ended. A tale that began with my own ill-fated attempt to rid the world of the Godwoman. A new divine rose, a true heir to the Seven, more powerful than ever, and united Rivellon in its battle against the Void. All across the realm he was loved, worshipped, and adored. Humans, lizards, elves, and dwarves all rallied to his banner. The Great Allegiance stood once more, but the war continued. From the depths of the void, the God King still sought to return. As for me, I was freed of the God King's terrible tyranny. I avoided an eternity of pain and suffering. Now I fight for the other side. Now, I fight for the divine.
Malady stands tall and proud. Sunlight sparkles.
Well, here we are again. You, me, and the ship I've saved from ruin. Get an eyeful, Your Holiness. I expect it's the last we'll see of each other for some time.
She turns to you, arms crossed, and grins.
Look at you. Magnificent. Actually, I've never looked better. Except for one small thing.
She fingers the mask covering her face. For a moment, it seems as though she's about to remove it, but instead, she places a hand on your shoulder.
We've come a long way together. I did my best by you all the way. I sacrificed much. But I'd give even more to see you become exactly what you've become. Soon, I'd like to have a little chat about something you can do for me. But I believe that can wait. Relax. Enjoy. I certainly plan to do the same. Oh, I don't know, around and about. Treat myself to some mead, a lover or 300. I'd say we've earned it. And when the time comes, I'll come find you. Your Holiness. Don't be a stranger now.
Well, well. Look what the cat dragged in. A god, no less. And me in no state to shake hands. Divinity suits you. Though I know of one it might have suited even better.
The Red Prince's spirit stands silent, contemplating the waves as they lap against the harp.
There's nothing interesting down there. The future lies above, not below.
Beast Spirit smiles as you approach.
You hear the wild beast just sails on the ocean. He's docked in the bay and coming your way. Off on the yawn, you hear the commotion. He's docked in the bay and coming your way. The cupboard can't hide you, nor can your berth. His daggers don't care about the gold that you're worth. He'll bury your bones neath a mountain of earth. He's docked in the bay and coming your way.
He pauses, then continues to hum, all the while working his ghostly whiskers. Beast tilts his head at the sight of you, smiles, and continues to hum.
Well, if it isn't the new Divine gracing me with his presence. How honored I am. That is the question, isn't it? How does one top the greatest feat of necromancy ever conceived? I might have the answer to that. Tell me, have you ever heard of Gustavgen? No, of course you wouldn't. It's a written language, unreadable to most, but myself, naturally. It comes from a mysterious race from another world, beings that feed on minds. I intend to seek them out. This Gustavgen seems to guard portals to their realm. And once I've uncovered one, well, why settle for being the greatest mind in just one world, and there's another for the taking?
Tarquin's smirk wilts into a glower.
I didn't come all this way to show deference. Some friendly advice. All who rise are capable of falling. Gods, the divine, anyone. Remember where you came from. The last thing this world needs is more tyrants. I thought the new Divine would have more pressing matters to attend to than to keep talking to me. Evidently.
Amazing I'm still here. That we're still here. That Lucian... Well, that relationship always was complicated, wasn't it? You're so much like him. My instincts tell me to kneel to the new Divine. I've done so before, after all. But I can't drive myself to do it again.
Gareth beams. For the first time, he is his own man. Yet his enthusiasm is not a man's, but a child's.
A friend, yes. That I know how to be.
For a moment, his mind wanders to memories of friends and enemies, of malady and magisters, of demons and divinity. He is then in the present once more, and smiles at you.
Friends. I find a way to fit. I wasn't just content to lurk in Lucian's shadow. I was his shadow. Now I stand in the sun as my own man. I just don't know who that man is. And so I find out. My goal is to have a goal, if that makes sense at all. And if it doesn't, well, that's all I've got. It has been an honor.
A slight grin crosses the spirit's face. Whether her smile is sincere or not, you can't be sure.
I see great potential in our new divinity. I don't expect to be disappointed.
Sabile's spirit tips her head in your direction and gazes out onto the sparkling sea. Losa winks and curtsies in playful reverence. Her spectral gaze twinkles. Losa sings to herself. A small smile.
I've never been fond of what the Divine stands for, but I must say, it's rather exciting to say I've been up close and personal with one. Who knows? A nice cottage someplace quiet for Mahalia and I. A roaring fire and a feather bed. Maybe. Maybe. But a girl needs some fun, doesn't she? Reform my ways? How adorable. No, I'm afraid I cannot escape who I am and what I've done.
Her eyes flick down to your mouth. She smiles coyly, then slinks forward to kiss you. Her mouth meets yours and devours you with predatory abandon. Somewhere in the recesses of your mind, you think you hear her voice sigh, "Mine." But then the kiss ends.
Something to remember me by, darling. Always so nice to have friends in high places. And your new position is about as lofty as they come.
It gives me almost as much pleasure to speak to you as it does to be whole again. I will always be an ally to those that carry swords, to those whose blood is of the heroes of old, and so, as always, I am at the ready. Consider me to be a gift from Malady. My wood was splintered, but my spirit intact. It was a great feat, but given her skill, not a surprising one. I feel better than you.
You look out to the endless beyond. The sun's light plays upon the waves, just as it always did. The sails flutter in the wind, just as they always will. And yet, something is different. You are different. And with a start, you realize where you must go next. You speak the command to the Lady Vengeance, and another chapter begins. War raged on. The ancient empire of lizards became one of the pillars of the new divine alliance. The houses of war and of shadows were particularly useful in the fight against the God King. The empire used the war to expand its territory. Justinia returns to her throne. Under her rule, the Dwarven kingdom fought for the divine, and her loyalty was unquestionable. Many fine and courageous dwarves did their people great honor, in battle and in death. With Lucian gone, the elves reluctantly rejoined the divine alliance. Their place in the war on the Void would entirely depend on the integrity of the new Divine. And here and there, across the world, what was left of the Black Ring fought on. The island of Fort Joy remained a sorcerer's paradise, a place of exile for those whose sorcery threatened to bring in the Void. For their well-being, its residents depended entirely on the benevolence of the new Divine. Reaper's Coast struggled on. The farms and the fisheries fought to feed the people against the Voidwoken blight. The black pits took fire. The oil there burns still. Driftwood teetered on the edge of starvation until the night the Voidwoken came from the sea. All were killed. This did, however, put an end to the famine. The nameless isle had vanished. Although only open water remained, by instinct ships would steer clear. None of the captains could articulate why. Sir Gareth thanked the surviving Seekers for their service and gave them their freedom. Disillusioned with ongoing war, he set out alone to find a new purpose. He would never stop seeking. Young Han grew up a warrior and became one of the Alliance's greatest generals. But even he could not win the war. With a new Divine at the helm, Malady had a powerful ally. But she was in no hurry to call in her favor. After all, it might be the last thing she ever did. Having performed the greatest act of necromancy in history, Tarquin found the new world unchallenging. He became obsessed with rumors of another plane of existence. One day he vanished and was never seen again. Ahu the Wizard served the new Divine with honor, wisdom, and an at times unnerving feline elegance. The undead priestess Gratiana remained in her sanctuary, happy to wait for the war to pass. She was troubled only by the silence of her goddess. Changed by his experience with the Godwoken, Mordus proved a useful tool in the fight against the Void. The Alliance quickly learned to keep him away from ordinary soldiers for the sake of morale. Jehan the Demon Hunter never stopped hunting for demons. Sahala sought to strengthen the Elven alliance with the new Divine. Her powers of sight proved useful in the ongoing war against the Void, but she could never be sure that the new Divine trusted her. Tova, her mother, was Sahala's most trusted warrior. And then there was you. You, Fane, the eternal Divine. What did you do with your power? What kind of Divine were you as the world battled on? Did you show mercy or strength? Did you sacrifice others as Lucian had done? Did you regret becoming Divine? Did you wish you'd surrendered the power that runs through your veins and sealed the veil? Only you know the truth. Only you know if you atone for your sins.
so it ended. A tale that began with my own ill-fated attempt to rid the world of the godwoken. When the dust settled, no new divine had risen. Instead, all source was released into the world for all the people and every creature to share. Everyone was now a sorcerer. And united, the peoples of Rivellon pushed back the God King into the very depths of the void. This ushered in a new golden age of peace and prosperity. But alas, it was not to last. With many greedy for wealth, power and position, the struggle soon began anew. Source, the very language of creation, was used in violence once more. The never-ending contest for power continued. As for me, I was freed of the tyranny of the God King. To atone for my sins in this world, I spent the rest of my days taking care of the sick and elderly. I would tell the story of the Godwoken to anyone who would listen. The story of the greatest heroes Rivellon had ever known. The heroes who chose not to close the veil.
Well, look what the cat dragged in. A Godwoken. But what good is it to be Godwoken when Source is now a free-for-all, and there is no divinity to be had? Complaining will get me nowhere, however. Not in this state.
The Red Prince's spirit stands silent, contemplating the way.
Malady stands tall and proud.
Well, here we are again. You, me, and get an eyeful. I have a lot of planning to do, now that there's not to be a new divinity.
She drums her fingers testily on her crossed arms.
All that work, all that effort, tossed into the gutter like a malformed child. Say that now. Let's see how you feel when you realize the true implication of a world filled with sorcerers. Never mind. We'll find another way. I always do.
She fingers the mask, covering her face. For a moment, it seems as though she's about to remove it.
We've come a long way together. I did my best by you all the way. Sacrificed much. And I'd have given...
She looks you up and down.
I guess this will have to do. Take a moment, why don't you? Relax. Enjoy. I certainly plan to do the same. Oh, I don't know. Around and about. Treat myself to some mead. Perhaps our paths will cross again until we find out.
There's nothing interesting down. The future lies above.
Beast's spirit smiles as you approach, and begins to sing a tune.
We're here, the wild cupboard can't...
He pauses, then... Beast tilts his...
Source of all, eh? Bold move, I'll grant you that. I didn't think anyone considered the little people anymore. I don't know yet. Perhaps peace will reign and all will be equal. Or perhaps you've bestowed great power on undeserving children and turned them loose on each other. Time will tell, I'm sure. That is the question, isn't it? How does one... No, of course, I intend to...
I'm buzzing. I don't know how else to describe it. But what you did, I want to say it was brave. Maybe it was, but it wasn't right.
Gareth is still. For a moment his mind wanders to memories of friends and enemies, of malady and magisters, of demons and divinity.
The people of Rivellon will call you their savior. The power is in them, in all of them. And there will come a time when they rebel, and the price will be high. A meaningless promise. You've blessed them and cursed them with a single choice. You didn't reveal your altruism. You revealed your greed. Power will be shared among the evil and the good, the light and the dark, the sky and the earth. They will enjoy equal source light, yes, but they will not be equal. I find a way to fit. I wasn't just content to lurk in Lucian's shadow. I was, so I find out. On my own, away from the storm that surely comes. The God King is defeated, but the door to the void is open, left there.
A slight grin crosses the spirit's face. Seville's spirit dips. Losa smiles broadly and casts her gaze over the ship's top deck. She sighs, relieved, and nods. Losa sings to herself.
A world full of sorcerers. That's quite a thing. But don't worry, darling. You're still special to me. Reform my ways. How would...
Her eyes flick down, her mouth meets yours and devours you with predatory abandon. Somewhere in the recess...
Something to remember me by, darling. Who knows? A nice cottage someplace quiet for Mahalia and I. But a girl needs some fun. I hope you won't be a stranger, my dear. I do like to keep in touch with old friends.
It gives me almost as much pleasure to speak to you as it does to... I will always be an ally. I am at the ready. Consider me to be... I feel...
You look out to the endless beyond. The sun's light plays upon the waves, just as it always did. The sails flutter in the wind, and with a start, you realize where you must go next. You speak the command. The world was at peace, at least for now. Few were as prepared for the new world as the lizardkin of the ancient empire. With power spread equally throughout the world, the advantage lay with those who knew how to steal it, and at this the lizards excelled. Justinia returns to her throne. Under her rule, the Dwarven kingdom prospered, until 2 years later a jealous lover stabbed her in the heart with a mutton fork. With their power returned, the elves reclaimed their lands from the Death Fog and began to rebuild. Soon they would split as two factions sought power, one to bring back the trees, the other to bring back the Scions. A dwarven joke did the rounds. It ends with the punchline, "So Lucian dropped the Death Fog on them again." And in a dark forest on the far side of a desert, well beyond the high seas, the Black Ring came together once more. The island of Fort Joy, the old redoubt of the Source King Brachus Rex, was turned over to the people of Driftwood to use as they wished. They turned it into a holiday resort. Reaper's Coast prospered. The fisheries returned, and the fertile farmlands produced the greatest harvests the surviving farmers had ever seen. Blood Moon Island became particularly fecund, its soil producing the greatest crops. A particularly crimson-fleshed orange grown on the island became a delicacy across half the world. The black pits took fire. The oil there burns still. Driftwood became a centre of industry, trade and transport. Lohar became mayor, and Brayton Barnes grew rich, until, after a public argument over import duties, Barnes died in an accident, buried under several tons of fish, and also stabbed in the back with a gutting knife. After a long and harrowing journey, Lovric the waiter arrived in Sicil, where he opened a tavern. The meaty stew became famed almost as much for its food as it was for its greasy, abusive owner. Lagan left his over-demanding wife and began a relationship with a local bard. In the spirit of loving generosity, he returned the ring to his now ex-wife. In a fit of rage, she threw it into the sea. The nameless isle had vanished. Although only open water remained, by instinct ships would steer clear. None of the captains could articulate why. Millennia later, adventurers would come in search of the legendary divine city of Arx and the crypt of the great Lucian. None would pass the path of blood. Sir Gareth thanked the surviving Seekers for their service and gave them their freedom. Disillusioned with the rising chaos, he set out alone to find a new purpose. He would never stop seeking. Young Han went into the theatre and became one of the realm's most popular actors. With no new divine, Malady found herself in a predicament. She had an important problem to solve, but no ally strong enough to call upon, and so her search continued. Having performed the greatest act of necromancy in history, Tarquin found the new world unchallenging. He became obsessed with rumors of another plane of existence. One day he vanished and was never seen again. With the source released to the world, Ahu the wizard spent more and more time as a cat. One day he decided he would not change back. With Amadia silent, the priestess Gratiana left the swamps and re-entered the world. With more undead than ever before, she founded an abbey in the Dragonspine Mountains, offering them shelter from hatred and fear. Mordus scratched out a living, ending up as a short-order cook. After an epiphany arising from the phrase, sunny side up, he started a religion. Upon his death from food poisoning, all three of his followers committed suicide. Jehan, the demon hunter, found himself at a loose end. So he opened a museum of demonic artifacts. After it burned down, with Jehan inside, witnesses claimed that the flames were the color of blood. As the forests grew anew and the elves were equals at last, Sahala shared elven knowledge of source with the world. But some elves disagreed and plotted against her. Chief amongst her opponents was Tova, Sahala's own mother. And then there was you. You returned to the world a sorcerer among many. Your future was yours to decide. Did you accept your new status with humility? Only you know the truth, you and one other. But of him you are free. The God King no longer calls your name. He no longer whispers your shame. Only you know if you atone for your sins.
So it ended. A tale that began with my own ill-fated attempt to rid the world of the Godwoken. Dallas the Hammer, the secret eternal, purged the Godwoken and used the source to close the veil to the void. The world was saved. Statues in memory of the Godwoken who sacrificed their source were erected all across Rivellon. They would never be forgotten. The half-demon malady took pity on the soulless, God-woken silent monks and brought them to the Hall of Echoes. There, from the scraps of their souls that remained, she restored them to life. Sorcerers no more, they lived out the rest of their lives, freed of the burden of being the God-woken, freed from the weight of the world. As for me, I was already free, and so were the others. The God-woken sacrifice severed the bond between the Sworn and the God King. To atone for my sins, I spent the rest of my days taking care of the sick and elderly, telling the story of the God-woken, that the world may never forget the greatest heroes Rivellon had ever known.
Well, look what the cat dragged in. To be fair, you are barely more powerful than one, now that the source has been ripped from you, and even more ripped from me.
Malady stands tall and proud.
Ah, there you are. More than a silent monstrosity, less than a god. In the end, I'm not totally convinced it was worth my while to restore your consciousness, seeing what you've done with it so far. Where did I go wrong? Oof, no thank you. I was interested in being owed a favor by a shiny new god, not some emperor of the realm. Never mind. Find another way. I always do.
She fingers the mask covering her face. For a moment, it seems as though she's about to remove it. But instead, she places a hand on your shoulder.
We've come a long way together. I did my best by you all the way. Sacrificed much.
She looks you up and down.
I guess this will have to do. Take a moment, why don't you? Relax. Enjoy. I certainly plan to do the same. Oh, I don't know. Perhaps I'll part until we find...
There's nothing interesting down. The future lies above, not below.
Beast spirit doesn't acknowledge you as you...
You are here, the cupboard cat.
He pauses. Beast tilt. Beast tilt.
No more swords, no more powers. Don't worry, darling. I know you have plenty of other qualities. Reform my ways. How adorable.
Her eyes flick down to your mouth. She smiles coyly. Then Almira pouts in disappointment, but it quickly morphs into a devilish grin.
Oh, no matter. We'll always have our first kiss. I haven't been quite able to put it out of my mind. Just as I'm... Who knows? But a girl needs some fun, doesn't she?
Lohse looks at you intently. Lohse sings. A slight grin crosses the spirit's face. Whether her smile is sincere or not, you can't be sure. Sabile's spirit tips her head in your direction.
The purging that once silenced you remains on your mind as you approach Gareth. You are grateful for Malady's miraculous touch. Without it, there would be no you.
Amazing I'm still here. That you're here. And that you might still speak. That Lucian...
Aside from a single blink, Gareth stands remarkably...
Time. Time has a way of changing someone. Lucian did not start as the man he became. Nor is the man I am now the same as him that once served at the side of the divine. Lucian doesn't need me. And believe me when I say, I no longer need him. I only did what I was meant to do. I don't deserve thanks. I gave only the bare minimum, and still I strayed quite far.
Gareth shakes his head vigorously in response to his own emotions.
Self-pity is as dangerous as any man I have battled, Alexander included. In this new world, this world without the seven gods, it's a foe I plan to defeat for good. I find a way to fit. I wasn't just content to... And so I find out. My goal is to have a goal, if that makes sense at all. And if it doesn't, well...
It gives me almost as much pleasure to speak to you. I am at the ready. Consider me to be...
I feel...
You look out to the endless beyond. The sun's light plays upon the way, and with a start, you realize where you must go next. You speak the command to the Lady Vengeance, and another chapter begins. At last, the world was at peace. The ancient Lizard Empire opened its gates. The houses disbanded, and the Empire adopted a pluralist quasi-democracy. Anyone could vote for whoever they pleased, as long as the House of Shadows approved. Justinia returns to her throne. Under her rule, the Dwarven Kingdom prospered, until 2 years later, a jealous lover stabbed her in the heart with a mutton fork. Lucian made amends to the elves. He gave them lands and vast riches from the coffers of the old divine order. But the elves never forgave him. They would not trust humans again. And in a dark forest on the far side of a desert, well beyond the high seas, the Black Ring came together once more. The island of Fort Joy, the old redoubt of the Source King Brachus Rex, was turned over to the people of Driftwood to use as they wished. They turned it into a holiday resort. Reaper's Coast prospered. The fisheries returned, and the fertile farmlands produced the greatest harvests the surviving farmers had ever seen. Blood Moon Island became particularly fecund, its soil producing the greatest crops. A particularly crimson-fleshed orange grown on the island became a delicacy across half the world. The black pits took fire. The oil there burns still. Driftwood became a centre of industry, trade and transport. Lohar became mayor, and Brayton Barnes grew rich until, after a public argument over import duties, Barnes died in an accident, buried under several tons of fish, and also stabbed in the back with a gutting knife. After a long and harrowing journey, Lovric the Waiter arrived in Sicil, where he opened a tavern. The meaty stew became famed almost as much for its food as it was for its greasy, abusive owner. Lagan left his over-demanding wife and began a relationship with a local bard. In the spirit of loving generosity, he returned the ring to his now ex-wife. In a fit of rage, she threw it into the sea. The nameless isle had vanished. Although only open water remained, by instinct ships would steer clear. None of the captains could articulate why. Sir Gareth thanked the surviving seekers for their service and gave them their freedom. Disillusioned with peace, he set out alone to find a new purpose. He would never stop seeking. Young Han went into the theatre and became one of the realm's most popular actors. With no new divine, Malady found herself in a predicament. She had an important problem to solve, but no ally strong enough to call upon, and so her search continued. Having performed the greatest act of necromancy in history, Tarquin found the new world unchallenging. He became obsessed with rumors of another plane of existence. One day he vanished and was never seen again. Ahu the Wizard became one of Lucian's most trusted advisors once more. He always knew that something had changed in the divine. He never discovered what that was, or, if he did, he never said a word. With Amadia silent, the priestess Gratiana left the swamps and re-entered the world. She founded an abbey in the Dragonspine Mountains, offering the last of the undead shelter from fortune hunters, novelty seekers, and ghouls. Mordus scratched out a living, ending up as a short-order cook. After an epiphany arising from the phrase, sunny side up, he started a religion. Upon his death from food poisoning, all three of his followers committed suicide. Jehan the demon hunter found himself at a loose end, so he opened a museum of demonic artifacts. He made a fortune. With Lucian in power, Sahala took the elves away from the world. They grew strong once more amidst the trees of the regrown home forest. Some say her plans for revenge will bring about the end of days. Some say only Tova, her mother, holds her back. Lucian returned as divine, united the races, and became Lord Emperor of all Rivellon. Only Dallis knew that he was entirely powerless. Dallis and you. The Eternal, now known as Dallis, was a secret advisor to Lucian and to his successors. For eons she would walk in the world, and would outlive the peoples and all, and wander alone amongst the dying stars. And then there was you. In a world of peace, you could live forever. Your future was yours to decide. But you were a sorcerer no more. Did you accept your new status with gratitude, or did you rebel? Only you know the truth, you and one other. But of him you are free. The God King no longer calls your name. He no longer whispers your shame. Only you know if you atone for your sins.
So it ended. A tale that began with my own ill-fated attempt to rid the world of the godwoman. The Eternals returned to the world. In the eyes of the God King, Fane was redeemed. He returned to his studies. Dwarves, elves, lizards, and humans to chronicle the rise and fall of the...
There's nothing interesting down there. The future lies above.
Wait but your word, Master. As I am at...
You look out, and with a start, you... And what of you? What of you, feign the eternal indeed? You were the key to it all. You brought the Eternals back to the world and saw the God King enslave the thieves. You set right the original wrong. And the seven were punished for their transgression. Are you proud of all you achieved? Or are you ashamed of your sins?